What's up, guys? It's McTavish, and today we're going to be doing some sound design using Ableton's grain delay, doing some sort of thunder and lightning sounds, as you heard in the intro there. If you're like me, the grain delay is probably one of those plugins you're not reaching for a whole lot in Ableton. It's often relegated to more the sound design kind of area rather than actual music. But if you're using the parameters in a subtle way, you can do some pretty cool musical stuff with this. But that's not the case today. Today we are doing sound design. Now, if you're not really familiar with granular synthesis and the idea of it, I would highly recommend you look elsewhere, because I'm about to do probably a poor job of explaining it. This is where kind of the producer and engineer in me starts to end with my own knowledge. But my understanding is that basically it's taking the sound that you're running through it and breaking this into tiny little fragments, grains, of which you can control the size and the sort of spacing, repitching, retiming. So just taking your sound, shattering it, and playing with those shards. That's pretty much granular synthesis. Now there are, of course, sort of standalone synthesis engines that do this. Native Instruments Absinthe, which is a lot of fun, and Ableton has it as an insert. Really, though, the principle is kind of the same. I do think of it more as an effect than a actual kind of method of synthesis. Anyway, let's have a look at how we're gonna work with this. Okay, so the source sound for this is I've got 3 of these drum loops, and they're extremely dry. Just doing some random little patterns. They're not warped or anything. Just checking them in there as they are. So let's have a listen. So yeah, super dry sound. So I'm actually doing this with 2 grain delays, which is pretty wild, because they really helped work together to just create absolute chaos out of these. I mean, even with 1, it's pretty chaotic. But with 2, we start to see how this is really taking shape. Now I'll just kind of leave these up. You can see the settings and take them. I think what's really kind of the key of what's making 2 of them cool is having the first one pitching things up quite high, and the second one pitching them down. And I think that they're sort of fighting it out, and that's what's making this sound so crazy. The frequency shifting is pretty gentle in this. I make no claims as to, a really carefully thought out reason I put this in. I just kind of played with it and thought it had a subtle effect and it sounded cool. Overdriving is going to kind of crunch up this low end that it's focusing on here. I'm driving it pretty hard, so you can hear. It's really helping account for the thunder in this sound on that low end. The filtering is a pretty big part of this sound and how we move the filter. So we're actually gonna hang on to that for the moment, because you can do a couple different things with it. So we'll come back. But the reverb, again, another big part of this sound. I'm using a big reverb here. The size is big decay time, quite a wet signal. You can of course use any reverb you like, especially if you have something that's well suited to big reverb sounds. By all means, go for it. And the limiter just to keep things under control, of course. So let's hear with that reverb. So now it's starting to actually sound outdoorsy, and we're kind of getting some of the wind and then the atmosphere of a sound like this. Now I haven't done any compression here. I've left this to be a very dynamic sound, because I just think that's what works in this case. If you want to start playing with compression on this, of course you can do that, and that's going to do some different things to it. I haven't really experimented with that yet, but I think for a sound like this, especially if you want to try and implement this into something cinematic or in a game or something, you probably want to keep those dynamics as intact as possible. So let's check out how the filtering is playing with all this. So the filtering is what's letting us do a couple different we can set up a couple different purposes for this kind of sound. Right off the bat, if we just kind of do a mid cut on this with this low pass filter, we basically muffle it, so we can do this kind of, you know, inside, we're inside and the storm is outside kind of sound. And by opening it up, we can step outside. When it's just fun. I think with the right filter sweep, you can also kind of do that surfacing from under the water kind of sound that's so common. If it's a quick one, like let's try and make it happen here. Yeah, that sort of thing. Doing a kind of slower and more careful type of sweep from low to high and back, actually just high to low, I think, is going to give you kind of the classic thunder strike. So let's try that. Not bad. I bounced out a sample here we can have listened to where I did this to a more satisfactory result. Yeah, and by just leaving it open entirely, that's kind of, again, we're outside in the storm. So again, you can purpose this a bunch of different ways just by moving the filter around. That's pretty much it. Now, of course, this is not a standard thunder and storming kind of sound. It's a little weirder, which I kind of like. If you really, for whatever project you need that real true thunder and lightning sound, I mean, there's a million samples of that sort of thing out there. So just grab one, I would think. But if you want something a little weirder, for one reason or another, I think this is a fun way to do it. Drums and grain delay. So as always, subscribe, leave a comment or send me a message if you have any questions or requests of any other tutorials. And thanks for checking it out.